Welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into the chilling psychological thriller Get Out 2017, where nothing is what it seems and escaping might not be an option. A black man finds himself trapped inside the home of a seemingly polite white family harboring dark secrets. The question is, will he be able to get out before it's too late? The film opens with Andre, a black man, walking through a quiet suburban neighborhood at night. As he tries to navigate the unfamiliar streets, a white car creeps up behind him, unsettling him. Andre tries to walk away, but the car door opens, and in a sudden, violent attack, the masked driver knocks him unconscious and drags him into the vehicle. We then meet our protagonist, Chris Washington, an African-American photographer living in the city. He's preparing for a weekend trip with his girlfriend, Rose Armitage, who arrives just as he finishes packing. She's taking him to meet her family for the first time. Chris hesitantly asks if her parents know he's black. Rose, brushing it off, assures him that her family isn't racist, even joking that her dad would have voted for Obama a third time if he could. On the way, Chris checks in with his friend Rod, a TSA officer who's dog-sitting for him. Rod serves as a comedic yet loyal voice of reason throughout the story. As they drive deeper into the countryside, Chris's unease grows. Arriving at the Armitage estate, it's clear that Rose's family is wealthy. Her father, Dean, is a neurosurgeon, and her mother, Missy, is a psychiatrist. Dean gives Chris a tour of their home, but Chris can't help but notice that the groundskeeper, Walter, and the housekeeper, Georgina, both black, behave oddly, smiling blankly and acting robotic. The atmosphere feels off. That evening, the family relaxes on the porch. Chris reveals that his mother died in a hit-and-run accident when he was a child. The mood becomes somber, so the conversation shifts to his smoking habit. Dean suggests Missy could hypnotize him to help him quit. As if on cue, Georgina enters with tea, her demeanor disturbingly cheerful and tense. Missy quickly dismisses her. Before Chris can fully process the strange vibe, Rose's younger brother Jeremy returns home from med school. Dinner that night is tense. Jeremy, clearly drunk, starts asking Chris invasive questions about his genetics, fighting ability, and even makes racially charged comments about physical superiority. He aggressively suggests that Chris could be a beast if trained properly. The moment becomes so uncomfortable that Dean and Missy step in to calm things down. Later in private, Rose apologizes for her family's behavior, embarrassed and frustrated. She insists that she didn't know they'd act so weird around him. That night, unable to sleep, Chris heads outside for a smoke. As he walks around the yard, he suddenly sees Walter sprinting straight toward him in the dark, only to veer off at the last moment, running past without a word. Startled, Chris turns and notices Georgina eerily gazing at her reflection in the window, completely unaware that she's being watched. Shaken, Chris heads back inside where he finds Missy alone in her office, sipping tea. She invites him to sit and talk. What starts as a casual conversation about smoking soon turns deeply unsettling. Missy stirs her tea methodically, creating a clinking sound that seems to put Chris into a trance. She begins probing him about the night his mother died, pushing past his resistance. Chris starts to cry as painful memories surface. Then suddenly he's paralyzed. His body goes limp, his eyes wide with fear, as Missy calmly says, "Now, you're in the sunken place." Chris remains frozen, staring into the void, as Missy delivers the final command, "Sink!" Instantly, he feels himself plummet into darkness, separated from his own body, aware, but completely powerless. He's trapped in what Missy calls the sunken place, a haunting mental prison where his consciousness floats while the world continues without him. Suddenly, Chris jolts awake in Rose's bed, his heart racing. Was it all just a nightmare? A text from Rod brings him back to reality, but his phone is nearly dead, so he plugs it into charge. Trying to shake off the unease, Chris steps outside with his camera to explore and clear his mind. While roaming the estate, he encounters Walter, the groundskeeper, who acts unnervingly calm, his words oddly formal, like someone out of the 1950s. His strange, distant eyes and stiff posture only make Chris more uncomfortable. When he tells Rose about his hypnosis session with Missy, she's surprised and apologetic. Yet Chris realizes that the session actually worked. His urge to smoke has vanished. Their conversation is cut short by the arrival of guests for the Armitage's annual garden party. Through the window, Chris watches a parade of wealthy, older white people arrive in black cars. As he mingles, he quickly notices how bizarre their behavior is. Guests touch his arms, ask inappropriate questions about his physique, and make awkward comments about black culture and genetics. It's dehumanizing, and Chris begins to feel like an exhibit at a museum. He retreats to photograph the grounds, where he meets another black man named Logan King. But something is off. Logan, like Walter, speaks and acts like someone far older than he looks. His stiff smile and old-fashioned demeanor put Chris on edge. Among the sea of unsettling interactions, Chris finds one exception: Jim Hudson, a blind art dealer who recognizes Chris's photography work. Unlike the others, Jim shows genuine appreciation for his talent, admitting he once admired Chris's eye for composition before going blind. It's the first conversation that feels authentic. Later, needing a break from the party, Chris heads upstairs. The moment his footsteps leave the crowd, a chilling silence falls below, and every guest tilts their head upward, listening. It's as if they're tracking his every move. Back in Rose's room, Chris discovers his phone charger has been unplugged again. Suspicious, he tells Rose he thinks Georgina did it on purpose, but she dismisses it. Chris then calls Rod and updates him about the hypnosis and the strange atmosphere at the party. Rod, deeply concerned, jokes darkly that white people love turning black people into sex slaves, a theory that feels less like comedy and more like a warning. Their call is interrupted when Georgina enters the room. Chris gently confronts her, saying he feels uncomfortable around so many white people. Her face twitches with emotion as she starts to cry. She insists that the Armitages are good people and treat her like family, but her smile is strained and unnatural, like she's forcing herself to say the words. Still shaken, Chris tries to secretly photograph Logan to send the picture to Rod. But when the flash accidentally fires, something terrifying happens. Logan freezes, then starts convulsing. His nose bleeds, and his eyes widen with panic. He lunges at Chris, screaming frantically, "Get out! Get out!" before collapsing. The family rushes in, and Dean quickly explains the episode as a seizure caused by epilepsy, claiming the flash triggered it. Trying to lighten the mood, Dean suggests playing a game, but Chris has had enough. Rose senses something is wrong and pulls him aside for a walk. As they stroll through the woods, Chris confides that everything about this visit has fell off since the hypnosis. He tells her he wants to leave. Rose, appearing supportive, agrees. They'll head back to the city first thing in the morning. Meanwhile, back at the estate, the family hosts a secretive, silent auction in the backyard. Guests sit in rows as Dean leads the bizarre ritual using bingo cards. The item being bid on? Chris himself. The winner? Jim Hudson. Back at the house, Chris manages to send Rod the photo of Logan. Rod instantly recognizes him, not as Logan King, but as Andre Hayworth, a man they knew who mysteriously vanished months ago. The revelation hits hard. But before Chris and Rod can discuss it further, Chris's phone dies. Now certain that something is horribly wrong, Chris tells Rose they need to leave immediately. She agrees but claims she has to find her bag first. As Rose searches, Chris's growing paranoia leads him to open a nearby closet. Inside, he finds a box of photographs. What he sees chills him to the core. Dozens of pictures of Rose with other black men, and women, including Walter and Georgina. One thing becomes horrifyingly clear. Chris is not her first victim. Rose returns, feigning concern and claiming she can't find the car keys. Chris demands they go, but tension spikes as Jeremy appears at the door, blocking their exit. Dean and Missy close in, surrounding him. Chris pleads with Rose. "The keys, Rose!" And her cold expression drops the final pretense. "You know I can't give you the keys, babe," she says. In a desperate attempt to escape, Chris lunges at Jeremy, but before he can gain the upper hand, Missy subtly taps her teacup with a spoon. The sound triggers the hypnotic state again, and Chris collapses, paralyzed. He awakens bound to a chair in a dark basement, unable to move. A vintage TV switches on, playing an eerie instructional video. On screen is Roman Armitage, Rose's grandfather and the founder of the twisted procedure Chris is about to endure. Roman explains that Chris was chosen for his genetic advantages, a term that dehumanizes Chris and reveals the grotesque reasoning behind the family's actions. As the familiar clink of a spoon on porcelain plays again, Chris slips back into unconsciousness. Meanwhile, in the city, Rod grows increasingly alarmed. He tries calling Chris repeatedly but receives no answer. Fearing the worst, he goes to the police to report his suspicions. Rod explains that Chris may be a victim of a white family abducting black men, possibly for sexual exploitation. But the officers dismiss his claims, mocking his theory with laughter. Alone and frustrated, Rod realizes he'll have to act on his own. Back at the Armitage house, Chris regains consciousness in the basement. This time a new message plays. It's Jim Hudson, the blind art dealer from the party. Calmly and with chilling precision, Jim explains the plan. His brain will be transplanted into Chris's body. Chris will remain conscious, trapped forever in the sunken place, watching helplessly as his body is used by someone else. Jim envies Chris's artistic eye, his sight, and covets it enough to steal his body. As the next hypnosis session begins, Chris notices something: cotton stuffing protruding from the chair's armrest. Acting quickly, he blocks his ears with it, preventing the sound of the tea stirring from reaching him. He pretends to fall unconscious. In the operating room, Dean begins prepping for the surgery while Jeremy goes to retrieve Chris. But when Jeremy removes the restraints, Chris springs into action. He hurls a lacrosse ball at Jeremy, knocking him out. All this time, Chris had been faking, protected from hypnosis by the cotton in his ears. Spying the mounted deer head on the wall, Chris formulates a brutal plan. When Dean returns to investigate, Chris charges him and impales him with the antlers, killing him. In the scuffle, a candle is knocked over, sparking a fire that begins to engulf the operating room where Jim lies sedated. Chris races upstairs and encounters Missy in the living room. She reaches for her teacup, but Chris knocks it away. In a moment of violence, she stabs him in the hand with a letter opener. Gritting through the pain, Chris wrestles the weapon from her and stabs her in the eye, ending her life. Barely able to stand, Chris stumbles toward the front door, only to be ambushed again by Jeremy. Caught in a chokehold, Chris counters by stabbing Jeremy in the leg and then slamming the door into his skull, killing him once and for all. Upstairs, Rose sits calmly, headphones on, browsing online for her next target. Shirtless photos of black men fill her screen. She's already planning her next hunt. Chris grabs Jeremy's keys and escapes in the family's car. As he speeds away, a figure appears on the road. It's Georgina. He slams the brakes, but it's too late. The car hits her. Haunted by the memory of his mother's hit and run, Chris can't bring himself to leave Georgina behind. Out of guilt and compassion, he places her in the passenger seat, unaware of the deadly secret that still lurks within her. Hearing the crash outside, Rose grabs a hunting rifle and rushes out, shouting, "Grandma!" revealing the horrific truth. Georgina's body is inhabited by the consciousness of Rose's grandmother. Moments later, Georgina awakens, filled with fury, and begins attacking Chris. In the struggle, the car veers off the road and crashes. Georgina is killed in the wreck, but Chris survives, battered but alive. Dazed and injured, Chris crawls out of the wreckage, only to face Rose once more, now fully embracing her predatory nature as she raises the rifle. She fires but misses. Just then, Walter, who, like Georgina, is revealed to be another victim controlled by the Armitages, bursts out of the woods, charging toward Chris at Rose's command. But Chris quickly grabs his phone and flashes the camera. The blinding light jolts Walter's true consciousness back into control. For a moment, the man he once was resurfaces, horrified by what's been done to him. Walter asks Rose for the rifle, calmly, deceptively, claiming he'll finish Chris off. But as soon as she hands it to him, Walter turns the gun on her, shooting Rose in the stomach. Without a word, he then turns the barrel on himself and pulls the trigger, ending his life and breaking free from the Armitage's control once and for all. Chris approaches the fallen Rose, bloodied and gasping. She pleads weakly, her manipulative charm resurfacing in a final attempt to survive. Chris begins to strangle her in a surge of pent-up rage, but stops, refusing to become like the monsters who tried to destroy him. Suddenly, flashing lights approach. A police car pulls up. Rose's eyes fill with hope as she calls for help, expecting a rescue. But fate has different plans. The door opens, revealing not the police but Rod, Chris's loyal best friend from the TSA. Without a word, Chris gets into the car. Rod glances at him, shakes his head and mutters, "Man, I told you not to go in that house." As they drive off into the night, Rose lies in the road, bleeding and abandoned. Her reign of terror finally ended.